Darkness has many shapes. Sometimes it wears a mask, sometimes it hides in shadows, and sometimes it slips into a crowd unnoticed, blending perfectly with the ordinary. In the late 1960s, California was alive with dreams of freedom, music, and rebellion. Yet hidden beneath that golden glow was a predator who would forever scar American history. He called himself the Zodiac. It began on a December night in 1968. Two teenagers, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, drove to a lover's lane on Lake Herman Road. It was the kind of place where young couples sought privacy under the stars. But instead of romance, they found horror. Both were gunned down in cold blood, their lives stolen before they had truly begun. The killer left no fingerprints, no obvious motive, only silence. The following summer, another young couple, Darlene Farron and Mike Mageau, sat in a car at Blue Rock Springs. Again, the stillness of night shattered with gunfire. Darlene was killed, but Mike survived, forever carrying the memory of a shadowy figure who emerged from the darkness, fired without hesitation, and vanished. Just weeks later, letters arrived at San Francisco newspapers. Written in a taunting, boastful tone, the writer claimed responsibility for both attacks. He demanded that his words be published on the front page or more would die. Attached to his letters was a cipher, a coded message he dared the public to solve. It was here that he signed his words with a symbol, a crosshair-like circle with intersecting lines. The Zodiac had revealed himself. This was no ordinary killer. He was not content with the silence of death. He wanted attention. He wanted fear. He wanted immortality. And he knew exactly how to get it. Fear does not only live in dark alleys or deserted roads. It can slip into homes through the morning paper, disguised as ink on a page. For Californians in the late 1960s, that fear arrived sealed in envelopes. Each letter was a performance, a declaration of power, a promise of more blood to come. The Zodiac's letters dripped with arrogance. He mocked police, belittled their efforts, and ridiculed the press. His words were not random threats. They were calculated psychological warfare. In his first cipher, later cracked by schoolteacher Donald Hardin and his wife Betty, he boasted of killing for the thrill of it, claiming murder gave him the most exciting experience. Yet the message ended with a chilling refusal to reveal his identity. The game was only beginning. As the letters piled up, his style became more theatrical. He used strange phrases, odd spellings, and an unmistakable voice of cruelty wrapped in dark humor. He sent blood-stained pieces of victims' clothing as proof of his deeds. He wrote of future plans, sniper attacks, school bus massacres, bombs hidden across the city. Whether he carried out all these threats or not, the terror was real. Parents kept children indoors. Police officers worked under a cloud of humiliation. Reporters fed the frenzy with bold headlines, knowing the public couldn't look away. One of his most notorious stunts came with the 408 symbol cipher. When solved, it revealed no identity, no name, only a chilling philosophy. Killing was his passion, his collecting of slaves for the afterlife. The message showed not just violence, but a worldview steeped in delusion and cruelty. The Zodiac was not simply seeking victims, he was building a twisted mythology around himself. Every letter deepened the mystery. Was he a lone madman or part of something larger? How could he taunt so openly and remain free? California had faced killers but never one who turned his crimes into a dialogue, who forced the entire state into his performance of death. Every legend has roots that reach further than we expect. Some investigators believe the Zodiac's shadow stretched back before his famous letters, back to the quiet town of Riverside in 1966. That October, college student Cherry Jo Bates was brutally murdered outside her campus library. She had been stabbed repeatedly, her throat slashed in an attack both intimate and savage. A strange confession letter soon arrived at the local paper, describing details only the killer could know. Its tone, mocking, arrogant, self-satisfied, bore an eerie resemblance to what the world would later see from the Zodiac. For years, this connection remained debated. Some police dismissed it as unrelated, while others saw it as the Zodiac's rehearsal, his first attempt at blending murder with words. Handwriting comparisons offered tantalizing similarities, but never certainty. To this day, whether Cherry Joe Bates fell victim to the Zodiac or another killer remains unresolved. The possibility, however, is chilling. If the Riverside link is real, it means the Zodiac had already begun testing his power years before California even knew his name. He was not born in the late 1960s. He was already evolving, sharpening his cruelty, preparing for the stage he would later command. What is power if not the ability to be remembered? The Zodiac understood this better than most. He chose a symbol that was at once simple and unforgettable, a circle with a cross through it, resembling a gun's crosshair. It was clean, stark, and terrifyingly impersonal. By signing his letters with that mark, he turned murder into branding. His ciphers were no less iconic. Beyond the 408 symbol puzzle, he crafted increasingly complex codes, some of which remain unsolved to this day. The infamous 340-character cipher taunted experts for over 50 years until finally cracked in 2020 by a team of private citizens using modern computing. Its message was classic Zodiac, gloating, evasive, and cruelly triumphant. But many other ciphers remain unsolved. Amateur and professional codebreakers alike have devoted decades to chasing his riddles, only to be met with dead ends. Some believe he deliberately inserted nonsense into his codes to waste time and frustrate investigators. Others argue that within those letters may still lie the truth of his identity, waiting for the right mind, or machine, to unlock it. The Zodiac's genius was not in creating unbreakable codes, but in ensuring they were compelling enough to keep people trying. With every unsolved symbol, his legend grows. Every great mystery breeds suspects, and the Zodiac case has produced more than most. Over the years, dozens of names have been proposed, but a few stand out. Arthur Leigh Allen was the most famous suspect. A troubled man with disturbing behaviors, he was identified by acquaintances, linked by circumstantial evidence, and even owned items similar to those described by witnesses. Yet his DNA and handwriting never matched. Despite years of suspicion, the case against him collapsed under scrutiny. Others entered the frame: teachers, ex-cons, journalists, even possible police officers. Each theory gathered supporters, but none provided the irrefutable proof needed to close the case. Some suspects had plausible connections to crime scenes. Others merely fit the public's idea of what a monster should look like. The truth remains slippery. Perhaps the Zodiac was one of these men. Perhaps he was someone whose name never made headlines. Perhaps he lived an ordinary life outside the spotlight, his neighbors never knowing the darkness he carried. That uncertainty is what keeps the mystery alive, ensuring that every face in an old yearbook, every grainy photograph of the era, becomes a potential mask for the killer. Imagine this: you're halfway through a crime story, waiting for the twist, expecting the detective to close in on the killer. But here, the opposite happened. The more police hunted the Zodiac, the further he slipped away. The closer they came to answers, the more questions he left behind. This is the moment where you, watching now, realize something unsettling. The Zodiac case doesn't play by the rules. This isn't a story about solving a crime. It's about chasing a ghost who wanted to be chased. He made himself the author of the narrative, the director of the fear, and we, even today, are still playing the part he wrote for us. So stay with me, because the next part isn't about what he did. It's about how his shadow stretched across decades, inspiring fear, obsession, and a cult-like following that no killer in history has ever matched. The Zodiac wasn't just a criminal. He was a performer, and his stage was the media. Every time he wrote a letter, newspapers printed it. Every time he threatened a massacre, Radio shows buzzed. He understood how to manipulate the press, and in turn, the press amplified his legend. This relationship was toxic, but symbiotic. Reporters got explosive stories that sold papers. The Zodiac got exactly what he craved: attention. His threats of attacking school buses terrified parents. His cryptic letters turned into national headlines. His name became a household whisper, the bogeyman lurking behind the next news cycle. It wasn't just California anymore. The whole country watched. Late-night talk shows debated his identity. Experts speculated on his motives. He had elevated himself beyond a regional killer into a figure of cultural dread. And while the public fed on the fear, the Zodiac fed on the public. The media's hunger ensured that the Zodiac became more than a man. He became a brand of terror. A faceless figure stamped into the American psyche. Long after his last confirmed murder, his name still appeared in print. The world kept asking, where is he now? And that was exactly how he wanted it. By the mid-1970s, something strange happened. The Zodiac, who once dominated headlines, grew quiet. The letters slowed. The killings, at least the confirmed ones, stopped. California moved on, yet his absence was as haunting as his presence. Why did he disappear? Did he die? Imprisoned for some other crime? Did he simply retire, satisfied with his work? Or did he change tactics, killing in ways that no longer carried his famous signature? Some believe his ego wouldn't allow silence, that if he stopped, it was only because he was forced to. Still, scattered reports of Zodiac-like letters emerged in the years that followed. Some were hoaxes, others remain uncertain, but none carried the same chilling authenticity as his original correspondence. It was as if the mask had slipped away, leaving only imitators to keep the legend alive. Yet the quiet was not comforting. It left a gnawing sense of incompletion, a story without an ending, a villain who simply walked off stage without explanation. And in that void, his myth grew stronger. Because nothing is more frightening than a monster you cannot see, one who may still be out there, waiting. The Zodiac case might have faded into cold storage, but technology resurrected it. DNA testing, digital forensics, and online sleuths dragged the case back into the light. Forensic scientists tried to pull genetic profiles from the stamps and envelopes he mailed. Though results were partial, they opened possibilities for matches. The rise of genetic genealogy raised hopes of identifying him the same way the Golden State Killer was unmasked. But so far, no conclusive hit has emerged. Meanwhile, the internet turned everyone into a detective. Forums and Reddit threads filled with timelines, theories, and suspect lists. Amateur codebreakers tested algorithms on his unsolved ciphers. In 2020, a team finally cracked his infamous 340-character code after decades of failure, proving his twisted words still had power across time. New suspects continue to appear. In 2021, some claimed a man named Gary Poste was the Zodiac, citing scars, location, and hints from acquaintances. But once again, without definitive proof, the case slipped back into uncertainty. And so, the chase continues. The FBI, police, and independent groups press on, knowing that every advance in forensic science could hold the key. Until then, the Zodiac remains both a cold case and a burning obsession, a puzzle the world refuses to put down. The Zodiac case does not close with justice. It closes with silence, and silence, in this story, is the loudest sound of all. Perhaps the Zodiac is long dead, his secrets buried in an unmarked grave. Perhaps he is alive, an old man watching television, smirking as strangers debate his identity. Either way, his power endures. Families of victims are still without answers. Investigators are still chasing shadows. And we, the curious, are still caught in his game. This was the Zodiac's cruel genius. He wanted to be more than a killer. He wanted to be eternal. By denying us his name, he ensured his own immortality. So as you lock your doors tonight, ask yourself, do monsters ever really die? Or do they live on in the stories we cannot stop telling? Because if fear is the Zodiac's true weapon, then even now, decades later, he is still killing.